It has been nearly 3.5 years since the attempted coup of January 6, 2021, yet there are still charges coming in nearly every week, it seems, against the people involved, both sort of on the ground and in the offices, as it were. Today, it's in Wisconsin, where State Attorney General Josh Kaul announced felony charges of forgery against 3 men involved in the attempt to submit fake elector votes in 2020. Mike Roman was Trump's campaign head of Election Day operations. James Troupis is a former judge and Trump campaign attorney. And Ken Chesebro, a name you may already be familiar with, is one of the masterminds behind the fake electors ploy. Chesebro has already pleaded guilty in the election interference case in Fulton County, Georgia. He is cooperating in Arizona's fake electors case. Mike Roman was also charged in Fulton County and Arizona. This is the first time James Troupis has been charged. He now joins dozens of other lesser-known defendants facing charges in the multiple fake elector schemes in Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona. Now, of course, the reason those were happening in all those different states was one man who was behind it all, who was trying to stay in power against the will of the people, and has only been listed as an unindicted co-conspirator in Michigan and Arizona. He is, of course, facing charges in Fulton County, Georgia, and federal election interference charges. Currently, he's being essentially bailed out by the Supreme Court that seems intent on delaying the federal trial until after voters go to the polls in November. I'm joined now by MSNBC legal correspondent and former litigator Lisa Rubin. Lisa, good to have you here. Hey. Tell me about these charges brought by the Attorney General of Wisconsin today.
So the Attorney General of Wisconsin has done something a little bit more surgical than we've seen in other states, only charging 3 individuals. You mentioned them by name: Ken Chesebro, Mike Roman, and Jim Troupis. But Wisconsin is the original sin in some ways, because Troupis and Chesebro were both people who are licensed to practice in Wisconsin. They knew one another. In mid-November is when Troupis and Chesebro first get together, and Chesebro says to Troupis, "Hey, I have this idea." And he writes the memo and shares it with Troupis. That's when Troupis says, "Hey, I think this has some traction. I'd like to float this with people in the national operation." And then sooner than he knows it, Ken Chesebro is enmeshed in very heady conversations with people who are then at the center of power and gravity in Trump world, people like Rudy Giuliani or people like Boris Epstein. So one of the things that I think is important for people to know is Wisconsin is where this fake elector scheme was launched. But it also has particular resonance because Ken Chesebro actually attended the fake electors meeting in Wisconsin. He went along for the ride. He took pictures of himself. There's video of him there. And then finally, his final act before going to January 6th and sort of tagging along with Alex Jones was to deliver the fake elector certificate from Wisconsin, to take it from a Republican Party of Wisconsin part-time staffer and then give them to another staffer on the Hill who was going to ensure that they got into the hands of Mike Pence's legislative liaison on the floor of the Senate. It was like, who can we trust? It was like a handoff. You'll remember that
they tried to recruit Ron Johnson, right?
Correct. And the Republican Party staffer who was involved in this handoff, was sort of so nervous about the whole thing that she infamously texted, "I feel like a drug dealer." So I think one of the things that's important for people to understand is Ken Chesebro.
The drop. She's talking about the drop.
She's talking about the drop.
And she says, "I feel like a drug dealer because," and I just want to stay on that for a second because that stuck out to me so much. We've seen that before. John Bolton described Rudy Giuliani's shenanigans and his off-book operation that was the subject of the first impeachment as, "I don't want to be involved in whatever Rudy's drug deal is." And what that term is I know there's something illicit happening here. Yep. That is a way of, so when you have someone saying, "This feels like a drug deal," it's like, right, you understand that this is not on the level.
No, this is not on the level. And in fact, one of the things that's also distinguishable here is that the 10 fake electors in Wisconsin, prior to the bringing of this indictment, were subject to a civil litigation brought by a number of people, including our friend and colleague Mary McCord, through Georgetown University. When they settled that litigation, they not only admitted wrongdoing, but essentially said, Biden is the lawfully elected president. We were told that we needed to do this in order to preserve the campaign's rights should it prevail in litigation. And we were tricked because we didn't understand that by signing this, they were going to continue the scheme irrespective of whether they won or lost the litigation.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if we actually have the document itself as an element, but there's a Chesebro himself in one of the documents uses the term weaponized to describe how he wants to marshal the Electoral Count Act, which is the federal law that guides this whole process.
Yeah.
We're basically going to weaponize the Electoral Count Act.
And I think it's important when exactly he says this in this scheme of events, too, because on December 16th of 2020, through their friend and fellow Wisconsinite, Reince Priebus, who becomes Trump's first White House chief of staff, Jim Trupis and Chesbro go to the White House to meet with Trump. The substance of their conversation isn't discussed here, but in other reporting, they basically went to talk to him about what the prospects could be going ahead. And they were warned by Priebus, don't get him overly excited. And of course, that's exactly what Ken Chesbro did. So the next day, Chesbro is trying to kind of be a more moderating force and says, well, look, things would have been better if we had won litigation, particularly in Wisconsin and other courts. But we still have a chance if we can weaponize the Electoral Count Act and sort of use it as a cudgel to show that these Democrats are relying on a clearly unconstitutional law to circumscribe the rights of people to debate this in the Senate.
Those pictures we've been showing us B-roll with his Chesbro, they're taking the pictures of the fake elector ceremony. When I saw that,
with his mask on.
With his mask on, when I saw that there he is right now, I thought of like the Hollywood trope of like the arsonist that comes to watch the fire. It's like there he is, taking it all in, taking it in his handiwork. Lisa Rubin, thank you very much.
Thank you.